Alright, 6th graders, today we're going to be looking at measures of time. By the end of this lesson, you want to be able to add and subtract measures of time. Now our smallest unit of time is 1 second. We do have things that are part of a second. We'll not really get into that a ton. For the most part, we go by seconds. And a second is basically the time needed to say 1001. After a second comes a minute. Okay. Second is abbreviated with just S. Minute is abbreviated MIN. And this is basically the time for 2 average TV commercials, is about a minute. Lastly, we have 1 hour, which is abbreviated HR, and this is the time for 2 TV sitcoms. Just a reminder that 60 seconds is 1 minute and 60 minutes is equal to 1 hour. Now when we're talking about time, some of the problems that we're going to talk about will deal with what's called elapsed time, and this is the amount of time that has passed from beginning to end. When adding or subtracting units of time, you want to add or subtract the seconds, then add or subtract the minutes, and then add or subtract the hours, and so forth. And then you're going to regroup when necessary and needed to simplify. Keep in mind though, you may need to regroup in order to subtract, but remember to use correct conversions. For example, on a trip to Chicago, I drove 4 hours and 20 minutes before I stopped. Then I drove another 2 hours and 50 minutes. How long did it take me to get to Chicago? So I have 4 hours, 20 minutes, and then it took me an additional 2 hours and 50 minutes. And because I want to know total time, I'm going to add. So 20 plus 50 gives me 70 minutes. 4 plus 2 gives me 6 hours. So it's 6 hours and 70 minutes, but the problem here is 70 minutes is really the same as 1 hour, because that's 60 minutes, with 10 minutes left over. So the total time would be my 6 hours plus my 1 hour 10 minutes. So it would be 7 hours and 10 minutes altogether. So now let's look at some examples. Why don't you go ahead and pause the video and then try these on your own and then go from there. So for example, we have an average day on Mars is 24 hours, 30 minutes, and 35 seconds. The average day on Saturn is 10 hours, 39 minutes, and 23 seconds. How much longer is a day on Mars than Saturn? So how much longer is going to imply that we should subtract? So we have 24 hours, 30 minutes, and 35 seconds. And a day on Saturn is 10 hours, 39 minutes, and 23 seconds. 35 minus 23 gives us 12 seconds. Since I can't take 39 from 30, I'm going to borrow, make this 23 hours. Remember, it's 60 minutes to an hour, so 30 plus 60 gives me 90 minutes. 90 minus 39 is the same thing as 90 minus 40, which would be 50, plus one more, so 51 minutes. And then 23 minus 10 would be 13 hours, so we have 13 hours, 51 minutes, and 12 seconds. Now this isn't necessarily the only way they could get the answer, but this is one way. If it took me 8 hours and 20 minutes and 35 seconds to finish a marathon, and the top finisher that day took 3 hours, 45 minutes, and 30 seconds, how much longer was I running than the top finisher? So once again, because it's how much longer, that implies that we can subtract. Okay, so we have 8 hours, 20 minutes, and 35 seconds. Taking away the 3 hours, 45 minutes, and 30 seconds. 45 is 5 seconds. Once again, we're going to borrow, so this is 7, and this becomes 80. 80 minus 45 is 80 minus 40, which would be 40. Minus 5 more would be 35 minutes, and then 7 minus 3 would be 4 hours. So I was running 4 hours, 35 minutes, and 5 seconds longer than the finisher. Now this next one is an example of when we were talking about elapsed time. If the movie begins at 11:15 a.m. and ends at 1:17 p.m., how long is the movie? Now what I find useful, because we can't actually subtract because we pass over the 12 o'clock mark, is we can do elapsed time. So from 11:15 to noon is 45 minutes. From noon to 1:17 is really slick because it's 1 hour and 17 minutes. So 1 hour, 17 minutes. Now I can just add those. So I have 1 hour, 17 minutes, and I'm going to add 45 minutes, which gives us 62 minutes and 1 hour. But since we can regroup the 62 into another hour and 2 minutes, the movie was 2 hours and 2 minutes long. Probably some confusion. That's totally okay. Just make sure you send me any questions on Edmodo, and we will go through this tomorrow.